Ladies and sinners, welcome to another Tuesday evening edition of the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. We're back at it again, folks. I know I took a bit of a hiatus last week, had some family stuff going on. I apologize for that, but guess what? We're back. We're better than ever. And what we're going to be looking into is a lot of Vegas sports because that's what we do here at IE Vegas. I'm Cale Henderson, your host for the show. You can catch us every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We talk all things Vegas sports, and we're on top of it, baby. I mean, this is kind of a lull part of the year, but we still have news to talk about because it's Vegas. There's always something going on in Vegas. There's always fun things happening in Vegas, and we kill it. How can you hear our show, you ask? I know I heard it in your mind. You guys think I read minds? It's probably true. Probably true, unless you're talking to my significant other, who professional selective listener here. I always read minds. How can you listen to our show? Spreaker podcast player, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser. There's a lot of ways to listen to the Sin City Sports Show, as well as the other IE Sports Radio shows. Taryn Rodriguez in the chat, the host of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, and as well as the... Oh my gosh, I just had a brain fart, Taryn. You're going to have to forgive me, man. But Taryn Rodriguez is the man, the myth, the legend. Set Point, I apologize. Set Point. He is the host of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, as well as Set Point here on IE Sports Radio. Make sure you guys get after him. He says, "Good evening, Cale. Have an awesome show. Glad to have you back this week. I'm glad to be back." Thank you, Taryn. No need to apologize when it comes to family stuff. I get it, dude. You know, I'll say it like this. Death isn't fun. I had to go to a somber point. I got it right before you said that, Taryn. I apologize. I had a brain fart. I know you're a Set Point host. I listen to your show on a regular basis when I can, at least, especially when I'm at work. Most of the time, your Set Point show goes off or you're on when I'm at work. So apologies. Death is never fun. So that's kind of what my family was dealing with last week. As a matter of fact, it was actually my significant others, but it was a beautiful thing. He was a good man. He lived into his 80s. He was with his wife for 66 years. A very faithful man. Old school couple, man. 66 years of marriage. It's incredible. And honestly, man, I'm pretty blessed to be a part of that whole situation because it sounds weird, but bright side. Right? And this is the human side of sports show. This is the human side of anything. I witnessed an elderly man who was loved by his family. Like, there were 15 people deep in the ER room. That's incredible. Like, it gives you chills, man, just thinking about it. Like, you were so loved that people stopped everything they were doing at 1 to 4 a.m. in the morning when they were getting notifications to drive to the hospital and just, stand by your side and cry and crack jokes his family does, and it was a beautiful time. And then the funeral was really good. It was a lot of Johnny Cash. He was old school. He's a badass. High school football player marrying his high school sweetheart who was a cheerleader. Like, it's just that stereotype, but it was great to see it. Yeah, Lexi's family, my significant other, she's got a very, very kind family. A bit weird sometimes, but a very, very kind and loving family, and it makes me proud to be kind of part of that situation because, I dealt with dealt with a situation a couple years ago where our family is only close when we need them to be. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird to say it like that, but my family's one of those, like, if someone's messing with your family member and someone calls, like, you drop whatever you're doing. You may not have talked to each other for 2 years, but you drop what you're doing, you show up, and you whoop wholesale ass. And that's just the way my family is. Her family, they're texting each other on a regular basis. Like, her and her sister, just back and forth, nonstop. But they're always talking to each other. They're always supporting each other. They're always talking about things. And that's kind of what I strive for my future family to be like. I want a good mix of both. A bit of a hard-ass mentality, but at the same time being loving. One of the things I try to do as a coach is to get to know, challenge, and love every player. And I'm trying to learn how to do that with every coach as well, because I feel like if you do that and you create that kind of environment, you're going to have nothing but success. So I know that was a bit of a tangent there. Thank you, Taryn, for bringing that up. I kind of had to vent on that. I guess there's not a lot of people in this world that you can talk to, and saying this stuff on air, it's kind of relieving. But it was even if it was kind of a depressing thing, it was a somber thing. It was also a really enlightening thing that we dealt with last week, and it just made all the sense in the world to be with family last week. And I'm not apologizing for you know being with family. I'm just apologizing because this is my a commitment to a show once a week, and I couldn't make it happen for an hour like I did the weeks prior where it was just a half hour because of practice. That's just who I am in character. So I appreciate you being here, Taryn. I appreciate you saying that. Um, Taryn Rodriguez, for you folks who don't know, I have to say a little real quick. Probably the best teammate out there, man. He does a boatload of things for IE Sports Radio. He doesn't just run his two shows. He's constantly on the road interviewing coaches and athletes, and he's keeping everybody up to date. He's an incredible, I would say reporter at this point. um, Journalist at this point. I just think Terrence's going to have a bright future if he keeps at it, man. So I'm really happy to be a part of it and witness some of the things you're going through. And I appreciate you being a good teammate, man, and always tuning in to the Sin City Sports Show. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And you guys can catch us every Tuesday evening Pacific Standard Time. If you missed the show, no worries. You want to know why? Because we are on Spreaker Podcast Player. We're on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser. We're on all of those platforms, and we love it. We love it. When we get back, we're going to dive right into Vegas sports because the Lady Aces, the Las Vegas Lady Aces, are at the top of the WNBA as per usual. Fantastic team, and they're defending champs, and we're going to dive into it in full force when we get back here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Callum Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
Welcome back, ladies and sinners, to another Tuesday evening edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can catch us on our Twitter forums at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson is my personal. You can also recap any of our shows at Spreaker Podcast Player, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, CastBox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser. Many forums to recap your beloved Sin City Sports Show. We're on episode 64, believe it or not. We're kicking ass, taking names, because this is IE Vegas. Would you guys expect anything less? In that time frame, we got to talk a little bit about a little bit of a segue into our platform. Sponsor read. Here we go. For the last 9 years, IE Sports Radio has brought you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to keep up with the latest in sports with our shows. Also, check out our website, iesportsradio.com, for sports news, the IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month, pages dedicated to each podcast on the network, our IE Sports Radio community forum, and stop by the store and check out the latest merch. Thank you for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. Larry B stops in the show, the man, the myth, the legend himself, the founder of IE Sports Radio. He says, I'm here, let's roll. Let's roll with what, man? Vegas talk? That's what we do, man, on Tuesdays. That's what we do. Pardon me a second. Sorry, I got a bit of coach's voice going on, guys. My throat's a little scratchy, been yelling. First week of fall camp is going. A couple weeks ago was like a 2-week summer camp where you kind of got to try and get kids up to speed, and unfortunately they have to pay for practices. Now we're in fall camp. Super excited. 65 kids for year one for just freshmen and sophomore only. So really good starting class, man. I think it's a really good foundation piece for the program I'm coaching for. So exciting. High school is exciting. It's a different speed. It's a bit more time oriented and commitment, but it's a lot of fun. Las Vegas Lady Aces are kicking ass and taking names. As of right now, they're 24-3. They're the first team to clinch a playoff spot. Wow. Like, season's probably a few weeks away from being done, don't get me wrong. But it's still incredible to me that they're that far ahead of everybody. The next best team is like 22-7. Which is incredible. Like, that's how good the Lady Aces have played this year. They've been lights out, and it's mainly from the 3 stars, right? Aja Wilson, Jackie Young, and Kelsey Plume, who are all still averaging more than 18, almost 19. So Kelsey Plume and Aja Wilson are averaging more than 19 points a game. Jackie Young's at 18.7. For majority of the season, she was over 19. At one point, all 3 of them were over 20 points a game. That's how dominant the star 3. Candace Parker's still averaging about 10 points a game. The big thing with her is the rebounds. Like, she's getting close to 10 rebounds a game, which is more possessions for the Lady Aces. The Lady Aces have just been kicking ass, taking names, man. They've lost 3 games, right? 3 games. One was to Connecticut. Good team. The Lady Aces had beat them like the night before, so it wasn't a big deal. Sometimes it happens. Fatigue sets in. Every time they've lost, it's because they were going into a doubleheader, essentially, in consecutive nights with that same team. And that tends to happen. It's not a big deal. But again, 26-3, right? Sorry, 24-3. What an amazing record to have. 88. Just to give you guys an idea, that's an 88.9 win percentage. 88.9. They're 14-1 in the Western Conference. They're 13-0 at home. 11-3 away. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Yes, they've lost one. They've lost their, like, what was it? Uh, Game before last, essentially. They're still, let's take a look here. Give me one moment, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games left. So roughly 3 weeks worth of games left. Oh, about a month and a half worth of games left, to be honest. No, yeah, 3 weeks. 3 weeks worth of games left. And they've already clinched a playoff spot. Like when you go to the standings on ESPN and look at the Las Vegas Lady Aces, they've already got an asterisk next to them, next to their name, because they've already clinched a playoff spot. They're the only team to do it so far. Other teams are probably still 2 weeks away. The second best team the second best team in this league, which is probably the Liberty. The second best team in this league probably won't clinch for what? The New York Liberty. They probably won't clinch for another 2 weeks. That's how dominant the Lady Aces are this year. So let's dive into it a little bit. What what is it that's keeping the Lady Aces up, and what is it that's keeping the defending champs up and running? Well, it's easy to point at top scorers, right? If three of your top scorers are averaging 19 plus points a game, what can you say? That's 60 points guaranteed from your starters. Okay, that's good. Fewest turnovers in the league. Okay, so you're not giving up many possessions. Is the Western Conference bad? Like, is it just down this year? Thoughts? I mean, the second best team in the Western Conference is the Wings at 15-14. We have the Lynx at 14-15. Like, maybe the Western Conference just isn't very good this year. Maybe the competition just isn't what you would normally expect it to be. The Sparks are 11-18, even with the addition of the former Lady Aces forward. I don't know, man. And they paid her big money, by the way. I don't know. I just think this team is in sync. They're riding the momentum of last year. Sometimes you run into teams in every sport that go back to back. And they do it with ease because they just have a great core group. They have a great culture going on. Yes, that stuff ends sooner or later and runs out of time, but they have a solid trio, man. A crazy, crazy good trio with Jackie Young, Kelsey Plume, and Aja Wilson. Um, One of the better trios we've probably seen in the WNBA for, I don't know, more than a decade. At least this generation, right? Um, so yeah, what is making the Lady Aces? It's just simple, man. I think the head coach is kicking ass. I think that this team in general just they have a hard time breaking. They score a lot of points. They're like they're beating teams like the Warriors beat the teams a couple years ago when they were in their prime. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Like we're talking about games of like 105-64 in the WNBA for God's sakes. 102-84, 113-89. Like what? And now games have gotten tighter, but one of the teams that have beat them, which was like they're like second or they're first in the Eastern Conference, um, beat them 99-61. Young, Wilson, and Kelsey Plume all had 15 points that game. Still played well. Just didn't work out. Beat Dallas 104-84 most recently. That was tonight, to be exact, at Dallas. This team's just crazy. AJ Wilson went for 28. Damn. AJ Wilson went for 28. This team's just dominant. Their next next four games are at home in the Michelob Ultra Arena starting August 11th. Washington, then Atlanta visits the Vegas Lady Aces, New York, and then Los Angeles. And that'll be on ABC at 2 p.m., by the way, on a Saturday. What an excellent, that's cool. You don't see a lot of mainstream WNBA action. Prime Video's hosting the New York game. CBS Sports Network will have the Atlanta game on August 13th, and the Washington game will be on Ion. Man, WNBA is really increasing. I think WNBA, from a business perspective, has really increased has really increased their platforms, so that way people can catch games. That's a great thing for the WNBA. It's a great thing for the players in the WNBA because they just need more attention. I'm one of those, and slap my hand if you want to. That's fine. I'm a businessman. I come from a business background, so I think that people should get paid what their value is, right? At the same time, I also believe that people value themselves at a higher level than most businesses do. So I'm glad that the WNBA is stepping it up because that way they can figure out the revenue share a little bit better and they can get these young ladies paid more. The seasons, I'm pretty positive, are not as long as a regular NBA season. Simply put, um, they just, I don't think they have the funding, and I don't think they want to. I don't think they want to divvy out the revenue that much. I think the revenue split needs to be friendlier in the WNBA. I also think that WNBA could continue to increase their efforts to market their team. Correction, by the way, after tonight beating Dallas, the Las Vegas Lady Aces are 25-3. Again, first in the Western Conference and have already clinched a playoff division or playoff. Yeah, they've already clinched the playoff spot. They'll probably win the conference in the next week because I don't know if anybody. Right now they have a 10-game lead. Next best team is 15-11. Lady Aces will probably clinch their division here in the next couple weeks, or clinch their conference in the next couple weeks. That's how bad the Western Conference is playing, I guess. But they're also just being dominant. Like they're just so hard to beat. But yeah, listen to all those forums. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that there are like 4 or 5 different options for fans to watch the WNBA now. It felt like 5 years ago that wasn't the case. You're either on ESPN at garbage times or not, right? You're either on ABC at garbage times and no one was paying attention or not. Like I think the WNBA is really advancing that and it's making things a lot better. We're going to go to a quick break, play some more drops from our favorite teammates. When we get back, we're going to dive right in. Oh, by the way, I do want to give you guys a quick recap. Unfortunately, this year, the Las Vegas Ramblers of the NBA did not win their title, their second straight title. They were defending champs, lost to the Texans Tyrants in the NBA playoffs. Did their best. They actually played really well. They lost 3-1. They lost to San Diego the time before that. 2 straight losses kind of eliminates you from the playoffs. It is what it is. But they were excellent. They were an excellent team. They won the American Conference. What can you do, right? I mean, they were a good team this year. They weren't the same team as last year. Actually, I just think the Texas Tyrants, teams like the Texans Tyrants and like San Diego just got better. They just weren't the same team this year. Did a great job, represented Vegas really well in the NBA, and hopefully wish them luck for next year, man. They still have a very good team. Hopefully that isn't like bombarded or dismantled in any way, shape, or form because, you know, money is an issue. But shout out to Las Vegas Ramblers in the National Volleyball Association for being a solid team the last couple of years. When we get back, we're going to dive right into Raiders training camp. A lot of stuff going on there. A lot of stuff to unpack. You have a lot of content creators that are just going in on the Raiders this year. They're either just so in on Josh McDaniels and their coaching staff and Dave Ziegler, or you have a lot of guys like Wi-Fi Willie out there, who is a Vegas resident, if I believe. He's kind of on the side of like, I'm going to try and find the dirt and put it out there because not all of the media members are being as honest about the situation as they should be. When we get back here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's up, everybody? This is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you. Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the '08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
College football, and do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college and the CCCAA and the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS? Well then look no further. Join myself, Larry B., and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back, ladies and sinners, to another edition of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can get back at us, or get to us, on all of our shows. There's different ways to listen to the show. We always have a bunch of different ways. I've said this a few times. Spreaker Podcast Player, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, CastBox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podchaser are all ways to review the shows if you don't listen to them live. And you can review all the IE Sports Radio shows, but we need you guys to like and follow the Sin City Sports Show for sure. We're in episode 64 here. Can't believe it's already been 64 episodes. Feels like the show started just yesterday. Larry B in the house. Taryn Rodriguez stating, yes, the Ramblers lost to the San Diego Wild in the semifinals. Their owner is going to put his foot down and make sure everyone practices and is all in. Not that everyone wasn't all in. It's just sometimes things got in the way. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes players get famous, have commercials to do, family obligations, all that stuff. I'm sure when some things can get complacent when you're the defending champs. Larry B chimes in, the Ramblers fell short. Yeah, basically. Um, but they played well. They've had 2 straight seasons of just playing really, really well and leading the NBA and well, not wins. I think they were second in wins the last 2 years, but again, they're the defending champs, so that's got to say for something. Unlike our Las Vegas Raiders, a lot of stuff coming out of camp, man. A lot of stuff coming out of camp. Right now, the Raiders are hosting the 49ers for joint practice. Las Vegas seems to be a hot spot for joint practices now because of the new facilities, the new digs. Kyle Shanahan said, the new facilities for the Raiders are absolutely stunning. They're a work of art. I mean, Bill Belichick said the same thing last year. He was in awe of how nice things were in Las Vegas, how well they could take care of their players there when the Patriots were there for just a short time. The Raiders are spoiled, man. Like the new facilities, the new digs, they're definitely the best in the league. It's hard to say otherwise. I mean, Los Angeles is probably a really close. They might be first, if not a close second. I just think there's a lot of character to the Death Star as opposed to the $5 billion, attraction that Los Angeles chose to build. So there's a lot to be said about the way Vegas chose to move forward with their business plan, their stadium plan, their plans on this strip. I think that's all huge, and that's what's allowed in just a short period of time, 3.5 years for that matter. This will be year 4. The teams in Vegas. They've jumped from $970 million back when they were in Oakland, net worth, to $6.5 billion. So I think they're like the 4th or 5th most valuable franchise in the NFL, and I think top 10 in the world, which is incredible. It's absolutely incredible to make that kind of a jump. You're one of the last in pro sports. Now you're like one of the top 10. And it's only going to grow because Vegas is going to get nothing but business. We're only going to see Super Bowls there, right? That's going to be right around the corner. Actually, it's this year. The Raiders Stadium, or the Death Star, will be hosting the Super Bowl this year. They host the Pac-12 championship every year. I'm thinking they're going to rethink that. After the recent college football garbage, I'm pretty positive that the Las Vegas Raiders are going to plan on hosting a different conference title game. It'd be kind of hard to think otherwise. But otherwise, other thoughts, other than business, training camp seems to have gone well. I think it says we're getting a lot of reports that the defense is improving. Max Crosby and the team are pretty much, and he said this in an interview on NFL Network, he's tired of people disrespecting the defense. Although he admits that the disrespect was warranted, the team defense has been bad for years. They're just tired of it, and he's trying to help lead that the way. So it sounds like the pass rush is improved, the defensive backfield is improved. Some of it is Jimmy G struggling. I mean, he's rusty. He's coming off a shoulder injury, a foot injury. I don't know. It's one of those things where you have 3 top 20 players in the league. 3 of them. Three of the top 20 players in the league voted by NFL players are Raiders. You have Josh Jacobs, you have Max Crosby, you have Devontae Adams. All of them are all pros. And honestly, Colton Miller should be a top 25 player. Colton Miller plays that well at left tackle. Either way, he's an all-pro and he's a Pro Bowler. The way I look at it is this. Did we really upgrade? I think Josh McDaniels got a guy he's more comfortable with. Does that mean he's a better player? Can he stretch the field? No. Jimmy G's never been known to stretch the field. He's just methodical and he gets the ball out. We'll see if that comes in handy. Look, I was just reading a tweet from Raiders Twitter. I think the Raiders are going to be really good this year. Call me crazy. What are your thoughts? They're the 3rd best team in this division. They're the 3rd best team in the AFC West. And I don't know if there's really any other way around it. The Raiders are going to struggle at times. The defense is still not where it needs to be, and I do think the offense, even though they finished, they might improve to like 10th best, because I think they were 12th best in yards per game and offensive efficiency last year. So they were a really good offense considering how bad the defense was. They could creep to top 10 this year, being Jimmy Garoppolo's familiarity. I just don't know if it's going to be an upgrade. Not as much of an upgrade as people make it sound like. Devontae Adams is hinting that he's just not happy that Josh Jacobs isn't here. I think he's trying to apply a little bit of pressure to the Raiders to get something done. The reality is Josh Jacobs was the leading rusher in the NFL last year. Like, there's no denying that. He did that in a contract year. Yes, there's a franchise tag out there. He doesn't have to accept it. They didn't take on his fifth-year option. So the fans out there that say, well, I guess he just won't get paid. I'm sure he's okay with doing that because some team is probably going to give him $8 to $10 million a year. That isn't the Raiders, and probably more stable. Like if I'm the Buffalo Bills, if this guy's released, you jump on him, right? Because Josh Jacobs is immediately your best player on the team. Or worse, Kansas City. They can make room on their cap anytime they can because of how flexible Patrick Mahomes' salary is. You think Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs wouldn't take on Josh Jacobs to run behind that offensive line? Josh Jacobs is a clear-cut better player than Pacheco. You know what I mean? Like, he's that missing piece that the Chiefs have needed, is that stable running back. The Raiders got to figure this out, man, because if he's a free agent, there's going to be a team that goes out and signs him. The Saints could be one. Alvin Kamara issues are a thing, man. They're a real thing. 3-game suspension for the Saints. The Saints could sign him. You do not want Josh Jacobs to leave this building. I've said for many times, I don't think Josh Jacobs will be on this roster week 1. And I only said that because the business of the NFL is just not in favor of running backs, and there's no way around it. There's no way to deny it. These guys are not getting respect. These teams think, well, we'll just draft 2 per year. We'll get them reps. We'll build up the offensive line, and they'll all look like top 10 backs. They'll all get 1,000 yards and be crazy rushers. That's what the business plan of the NFL is, and it's been a proven track record. You know what team kind of ruined it for everybody? The New England Patriots. You know where Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels came from? Exactly. So I don't blame Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. What I am saying is, for a team that, in my opinion, downgraded at quarterback, not by much, don't get me wrong, Jimmy G, because of his familiarity with the offense, the familiarity aspect's an upgrade. Is he a better talent than Derek Carr? Absolutely not. Is he a proven winner? Yes. Let's dissect that a little bit. Please. Let's be real, guys. We can't just come out and give, our opinions and not have facts involved with it. Let's look at that San Francisco. Let's look at that New England team he played for when he filled in for Tom Brady. Top 10 defense. Top 10 defense. Those are the 2 years he played before getting, basically traded because of the heat between, Bob Kraft and Bill Belichick or whatever the so-called, garbage was. Okay, fine. Let's go to San Francisco. They've had top 10 defenses the last 5 years. Jimmy G's first year, that defense was in the middle of the pack, and they were improving. They were young. They hadn't drafted. I think they had just drafted Bosa, for that matter. They just weren't there yet. But year 2 of Jimmy G, year 3, 4, yeah, elite defenses, like Super Bowl caliber defenses that carried them to the Super Bowl. They could say whatever they want. Jimmy G didn't take them to the Super Bowl. He played efficient. That zone run scheme and that excellent defense got them to the Super Bowl. So the facts are, Jimmy G's a winner. He does things right. Is he the reason teams win? Not necessarily, no. Jimmy G has been lucky to be a part of 2 franchises. This is his 3rd franchise. 2 franchises that bolster, that can boast top 10 defenses and top 10 running attacks. And those are recipes, tried and true, that have won football games for decades, for centuries, for that matter. Is Jimmy G an upgrade over Derek Carr? Is he more talented? No. Is he a winner? Yes. That's what people are looking at right now. I'll give him that. But he's got to prove it here. And he's got to do it with these tools. Because this coaching staff, Josh McDaniels, Dave Ziegler, they have their guys now. There's been almost 100 transactions since they took over 2 years ago. This is their team, man. They don't have an excuse. Yes, they do need a couple years to replenish their draft board because, let's be honest, the Raiders have been absolutely horrible in the first and second round the last 5 years. This year, I think they actually did a really good job. Do I think Tyree Wilson was better than Jalen Carter? Absolutely not. Do I think Tyree Wilson was a good pick? Yes. Michael Mayer was picked in the second round. He was a first-round tight end in my book. By a lot of people's judgment, he was a first-round tight end. So this was like the first year we might see two very productive players in the first and second round getting drafted to this team in 6-7 years, which is pretty damn pathetic. Like the last time I can think of a first and second round player being any use to the Raiders was 2014. Tell me I'm wrong. Khalil Mack and Derek Carr. That's the last time a first and second round pick worked out for the Raiders right now. Other than Josh Jacobs, I'll give him that. But what I'm saying is that's 3 picks, 3 first-round picks. Colton Miller. Okay, Colton Miller. So 4 first-round picks in 10 years. That's not a good percentage, man. That's not a good 40% is not a good percentage. Period. You can't convince me otherwise. I'm sorry. I won't stand for it, man. I think it's just been bad. So yes, I will give this regime that kind of leniency. They deserve another year to build their draft board. Do I think Josh McDaniels deserves another year if they lose? No. I do not. I think that Mark Davis will cave and let him keep his job because it's obvious Mark does not make very good coaching or business decisions unless it has to do with making money in Vegas. He deserves all the credit in the world for that. His coaching hires have been really bad. Jack Del Rio was probably his best one. John Gruden could have been his best one if the NFL didn't want to do the smear campaign. I have no problem saying that's the truth. It is what it is, man. This staff has a lot to prove. And the Raiders, we're at the point like this, man. I want the Raiders to prove me wrong. They just need to shut the hell up and win. It's that simple. I'm not interested in hearing Max Crosby saying, I'm tired of being disrespected. I'm tired of our defense being bad. Just prove us wrong, man. Go out and play well. Let's try that. Let's do something the Raiders don't do very often. Go out and play well. Win games. And you won't have this criticism anymore. Josh McDaniels, coach your heart out. Be that football genius that everyone says you are. And beat Kansas City in Los Angeles this year. One of them multiple times. Do it, and you won't have a monkey on your back. Do it, and you won't have as much disrespect. I just don't see it. And that's where I go back to that tweet. Are the Raiders a good team? Yes. On paper, if they were in the AFC South, they'd be a great team. If they were in the NFC South, they'd be a great team. They're in the AFC West. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers are both better constructed teams as of right now. Inside and out. They both have better quarterbacks. You could argue the Raiders have the 4th best quarterback in the division. Last year, they had the 2nd or 3rd, depending on when Herbert was playing well or not. That's the reality we're looking at, folks. Jimmy G's got a lot to live up to. Josh McDaniels has a lot to live up to. Patrick Graham is no slouch either. He's got better players now. He has no excuse. The defense needs to improve. And they need to jump into like the top 15. Top 16. Like if they finish 16th this year, that's obviously a massive improvement because the Raiders haven't finished better than 25th in over a decade. I think they were finished 22nd in 2016 when the Raiders went 12-4. But the offense was so good that year and so clutch that it kind of masked a lot of that. And the other thing the Raiders did when they were, if you're going to be in the 20s, you have to have a great turnover differential. Like you need to be a top 5 team in turnover differential to win games. And that's something the Raiders have not been able to do consistently for 10 years. So the coaches have a lot to live up to. I want them to prove me wrong. I think this is a third place team. I think this is a team that goes 8-9, 7-10. Okay, so is it an improvement over 6-11? Yes. Is it enough for Josh McDaniels to keep his job? Absolutely not. Especially with the Derek Carr situation. Instead of drafting a quarterback, picking Jimmy G, you guys get where I'm going with this. You went out and traded for Devontae Adams. He's been very good. He's still an elite wide receiver. There's just a lot of questions with play calling. There's a lot of questions with the development. There's a lot of questions on the roster, and they have to answer them all this season. Otherwise, I strongly believe there needs to be a change. It's that simple. Josh McDaniels needs to put his money where his mouth is, right? Mark Davis needs to put his money where his mouth is, and they need to win games. Period. It's that simple. That's where I'm at with the Raiders. Taryn Rodriguez says the new host for the Pac-12 football championship will be First Energy Stadium, the home of the Cleveland Browns. Gross. Jacobs is 3/4th out the door. Hopefully, for the Raiders' sake, they can keep Adams fully in house. I just don't know if it's going to happen, Taryn. I mean, I think Adams is here. He said he wants to retire a Raider, so that's different. A few weeks ago when I said, hey, I don't know if he'll be on the roster, that was when all those things were coming out. I just don't know. Will the Raiders win the Caleb Williams sweepstake? No, because it would be a Raiders thing, and I hate to say it like this. It would be such a Raiders thing to do, to win enough games to get out of the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. That's where the Raiders are at. They will win probably just enough games to be out of that sweepstakes. They'll be drafting somebody really high again or something, like some defensive player high. I don't want that to be the case. I'm a Drake May guy, to be honest with you. I think the guy is a stud. Drake May had very similar stats to Caleb Williams in his defense. That the North Carolina defense was one of the worst ones in the Power 5. USC was a much better defense. Just saying, Drake May's impressive, man. He might have a crazy year. If UNC can figure out their defensive issues, Drake May's going to have a Heisman caliber year. He had a Heisman caliber year last year. He just happened to be competing against Caleb Williams and that really good USC team. So no, I don't think the Raiders will be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. Would they like to be? Probably, but it won't happen. And I say this like this, man. I think that if the Raiders have a losing season, Josh McDaniels isn't back. If the Raiders go like 4-13 or 3-14, there's just no way he's back. And then the new coach gets to coach Caleb Williams. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what we're looking at in that situation. So I just don't see them doing that. I think they'll win games. They'll win games just to make sure they keep their jobs safe. That'd be such a Raiders thing to do. Raiders organization thing to do. Rumors out there that Jimmy G's been struggling. A lot of interceptions. Just doesn't have quite the oomph, the arm. There's some guys defending him from the Raider Ramble, stating, well, he's been out for a while. But the other thing, the final verdict is, like any other camp story, is certainly he's saying basically the camp stuff's being overblown. Jimmy G is going to throw some picks because it's camp. He just needs some time to gel with this team. Why? Why are we giving him that excuse? Derek Carr didn't get excuses, right? Like people like the Raider Ramble wouldn't give Derek Carr excuses. Why are you giving Jimmy G excuses? He's supposed to be extremely familiar with this offense. He has an all-world receiver. He's a talented tight end. I mean, according to PFF, he has a top 10 offensive line coming back from last year. That's complete bullshit. We know that. Why does Jimmy G get excuses? Are we going to give him a couple years of excuses? Because it wasn't tolerable with Derek Carr, remember? We'll see what happens, man. I hope Jimmy G balls out. I hope he throws 36 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. The Raiders go 12-5. I just don't see it happening. I see 7-11. I see 8-9, and that's being optimistic because this schedule isn't going to be easy, and the Chiefs and the Chargers are just really, really good. And after last year losing 7 games with a double-digit lead, I don't think they've earned my respect. I don't think this coaching staff has earned my respect, my optimism. Prove me wrong, man. Win a ton of games. I will shut up. I will eat crow. I would have no problem eating crow. I've loved this team since I was a kid. I would have no problem eating crow. The Josh Jacobs stuff is still ridiculous. Like the guy, they should have a decision made by now. Either you're going to extend him at the contract that's similar to what the agent and Josh Jacobs are looking for, or trade him, man. Get some value out of the dude. You can still trade the guy. He's got a franchise tag, so technically he's not under contract, but he is. He can't just leave without the Raiders cutting them. Trade him. See if you can get a second or a third round pick next year. You have young backs on this team. Use them. Grow them. You're probably not going to make playoffs anyway. Get those reps in. I feel for Davante Adams. He came here looking to win. It's not going to happen this year. It didn't happen last year. And unless some miracle happens, I don't know if it happens next year. Unless Aiden O'Connell's the next Tom Brady. I don't see it. No offense. It's kind of hard to do that. This team's just going to struggle for a bit. I think we're in rebuild mode. And I think people should kind of get used to that as Raiders fans. You don't want to be rebuild mode because you have some really good players. But I think some hard conversations are going to be had. I think like guys like Max Crosby, not saying that they're on the chopping block, but you get to the trade deadline and you have a losing season, you're kind of out of the playoffs. Like what do you do? Look at trading Max Crosby to a team that's a contender? Get a bunch of draft capital. You got Tyree Wilson. You could always draft another pass rusher next year with that additional first-round pick. I'm not saying do it because Max Crosby's a homegrown talent. And he's awesome. But he was from the old regime. And he wants to win. And if the Raiders aren't going to win in the next couple of years, we're just wasting his prime. And that's what I want the Raiders to avoid doing, is wasting the prime of a lot of these players. I'm worried that in 2 years when the Raiders are relevant again and they can compete, Davante Adams will be past his prime. He's going to be a fixture for the receivers. He's going to be great for the receivers, a mentor. But when he gets past his prime, that's going to suck. Because we all saw what happened to Julio. Like, he was dominant until he wasn't. All right, Davante's probably the same way. It's just the way it is. Father Time usually catches up. Davante's in the wrong side of 30. We'll see what happens. Still a big fan. I just want to see what happens. I'm going to be realistic about this situation now. And I think we all should. But camp sounds like it's competitive. Sounds like we're seeing the defense improve, which is something that the Raiders have been desperate. Like, they've been bottom 10 in the league every year since 2016. That's crazy. The interceptions are big. Jimmy G's thrown a lot of them interceptions, so on the flip side, it's not big. Makes you wonder, is it just rust? Or is the guy just taking chances? What's going on? You have different reports. You have guys like Wi-Fi Willie, content creators out there that are saying, well, fights are breaking out in camp. Arguments are breaking out in camp. Max Crosby's crapping on Jimmy Garoppolo, saying he's mid. Stuff like that. Like, maybe they're not true because Wi-Fi Willie tends to stir some things up. But it wouldn't surprise me, man. Things get heated. And sooner or later, a frustrated player that's as good as Max Crosby is going to want the best possible player at that position. And I'm sure he's wondering if Jimmy G's struggling, and you used to play with a guy named Derek Carr who never struggled in training camp. I don't know. Keep it real as always. As always, Taryn, we always do that. This is Cale Henderson, the host of the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As always, you folks can catch us every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Spreaker Podcast. You can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, you name it. Listen to the show again. Listen to all of our shows. We're 64 episodes deep. And as always, folks, thank you for tuning in. Love, peace, and hair grease.